Chapter 7 AP Human Geography Kyushu 1 Our main focus is to identify where ethnicities are distributed. We are going to start off with vocabulary words that you need to know and the differences between ethnicity and race. So, ethnicity is an identity which is a group of people who share the cultural traditions of a particular homeland or earth. As for race is an identity with a group of people who share similar physical trait, for example, skin color. Nationality is an identity with a group of people who share legal attachment to a particular country. Racist is a person who subscribes to racism. Therefore, racism is the belief that race is primary determinant of human trait and capacities and that racial differences produce an inherent superiority of a particular race. Race and the U.S. Census. The three most ethnicities in the United States are Hispanics, African Americans, and Asian Americans. The U.S. Bureau Census is a government group of geographers to calculate the population of areas in the USA. The U.S. Bureau Census claims that Asians are a distinct race. As for Asian American, it is known as an ethnicity in which is basically the same group of people. We are going to move on with the differences between African American and Black. African American identify as a group with the cultural traditions. Therefore, as for the word Black, it is nothing more than dark skin. Lastly, Hispanics are considered an ethnicity, not a race, so they are able to choose what race they seem to identify as. So in the US, ethnicities are distributed in two different scales. The first one is people of certain ethnicities are living in particular regions of the country. As for the second one, it demonstrates the differences in ethnic groups living in certain communities within city and state. As for Hispanics, they are mainly clustered in the Southwest. They exceed one-third of the population in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and one-quarter of California. African Americans are mainly clustered in the Southeast. They comprise at least one-fourth of the population in Alabama, Georgia, Maryland, Louisiana, South Carolina, and more than one-third of Mississippi. Asian Americans are mainly clustered in the West. They comprise more than 40% of the population in Hawaii, and one-half of Asians live in California, where they comprise 12% of the population. Now we are going to talk about ethnic enclaves, which is a geographic area with a high percent of people from a single ethnic group. Many people gather in ethnic enclaves because of the familiar languages they speak, familiar customs and foods, and economic solidarity. Ethnic enclave helps immigrant groups share knowledge and resources. An example of an ethnic enclave that helps immigrants is a Chinese restaurant that hires relatives from their hometown for like China, you know? This leads to them working there and getting better at English to find better job opportunities. So this closed off key issue 1.
This is Chapter 7, Key Issue 2, presented by me. Forced migration during the slave trade. Thousands of Africans were forced onto ships and then sent to the 13 colonies. At the peak of the slave trade, millions were forcefully taken from their homes, resulting in forced migration. Interregional migration after the Civil War. Once the Civil War was coming to an end, African Americans were concentrated in the rural South and stayed there. They began working as sharecroppers when slavery was abolished in 1865. Even though slavery was already abolished, they were compared very little compared to other workers. Sharecropping became less common in the 20th century because African Americans migrated out of the South. Intra-regional migration. African American neighborhoods expanded, and this was caused by events that happened from the center of the cities. Once they reached bigger cities, they would cluster in one or two neighborhoods. Small numbers previously arrived in the 19th century. White flight. The expansion of predominantly African American areas in American cities was made possible by white flight. The emigration of whites from an area in anticipation of African Americans migrating into the area. Blockbusting. The factor of blockbusting was encouraged by white flight. Real estate agents convinced white homeowners in the area to sell their property at a lower value, fearing that black families would move into the area. The agents would sell the houses at a higher value to black families to prevent overcrowded areas. Redlining, a process by which financial institutions draw red-colored lines on a map and refuse to lend money to people of color to purchase or improve property within the lines. Separate but equal. The concept was upheld by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1896. Louisiana had enacted a law that required black and white passengers to ride in separate train cars. How did the Civil Rights Movement change the United States? The Civil Rights Movement changed the U.S. by securing the rights of African Americans.
Hey guys, we forgot to introduce Key Issue 3, but we all did Key Issue 3 okay by God bless.
What is nationality and how does it differ from ethnicity? Nationality, identity of a group of people that share legal attachment and personal allegiance to a particular place because they were born there. Ethnicity identifies groups with distinct ancestry and cultural traditions. Examples would be Mexican Americans, Chinese Americans, and Polish Americans. Nationality identifies U.S. citizens, those who are born in the country and those who immigrated, becoming citizens. What is nationalism and how do states foster it? Nationalism is loyalty and devotion to a nationality. People display nationalism by supporting a country that preserves and enhances cultures and attitudes. States foster it by promoting symbols of the country. Examples would be flags and songs.
Ethnic diversity in Western Asia. Ethnicities in Turkey. Turks live 3/4 of the population of Turkey, and Kurds live 80% of the population of Turkey. Ethnicities in Iraq. Iraqi Arabs comprise 90% of Iraq's population, and it is divided by branches of Islam. Ethnicities in Syria. It is Shia Arabs, Sunni Arabs, and Kurds. There is more of Arabs that have, there's more Arabs in Syria and majority of Kurds. Ethnicities in Lebanon. 55% Muslim, 40% Christian, and 5% Druze.
Key Issue 3.3 by me, Emily. This section discusses ethnic diversity in West Central Asia, and I made these cute little pie charts. I just want to point out how cute that is before I start. Okay. Ethnicities in Pakistan, 45% Punjabi, 15% Pashtuns. Ethnicities in Iran, 61% Persians, 16% Azerbaijanis, 6% Lurs, 2% Shiite Arab, and 2% Baluchi. Ethnicities in Afghanistan: 42% Pashtun, 27% Tajik, 9% Hazara, and 9% Uzbek. Ethnicities in Caucasus: this is multiple countries. So, Armenia, there is only 2% like actually ethnic Armenians, and Azerbaijan, more than 90% Azerbaijanis. Georgia, 82% Georgians, 6% Azerbaijani, 5% Armenian, 3% Abkhazian, 2% Ossetian, and 1% Russian. Ethnicities in Central Asia states include more than 80% Tajiks and Turkmens, more than 70% Kyrgyz and Uzbeks. And then finally, more than 60% Kazakhs. Okay, Keisha 4, yay! Basically, the main question of this section is, why does genocide and ethnic cleansing occur? But first, what is ethnic cleansing and genocide? Ethnic cleansing is basically an ethnic slash religious group that creates a policy that kind of, how do I say this, allows violence or uses violence towards another ethnic or religious group until they eventually pack their bags and they leave that area. Now, genocide is the mass killing of a group with the goal of erasing that group from existence. So, where has ethnic cleansing and genocide occurred? One of the most well known examples of ethnic cleansing and genocide is Europe during World War II. So, the victims of World War II include 17 million people overall. 6 million of those were Jewish, and 1 million were children. This led to 1/3 of the world's Jewish population being killed, and 2/3 of Europe's Jewish population being killed. So, the aftermath of World War II basically forced Germans and Poles to move because part of Germany had been gained by Poland and part of Poland had been gained by the Soviet Union. And here's just some pictures of basically what they were forced to do while they migrated. So, next, Myanmar. So, like the Jewish during World War II, the victims of this example were the Rohingya. And during the 19th century, the Rohingya moved from Bangladesh to Myanmar. And basically, during the 19th century, both of these countries had been British colonies. And because of that, Myanmar's government basically said, you're here illegally, and they didn't want them there. So in 1982, Myanmar's government launched a policy that basically prevented the Rohingya from having citizenship, land, jobs, and education. And in 2016, the Rohingya kind of decided that they were going to fight back. And let's just say they tried, guys, because it didn't work out, which basically led to 1 million being ethnically cleansed. Yugoslavia. Yugoslavia was a country in the Balkans, and the country was created after World War I. And Yugoslavia had like a ton of ethnicities inside of it, which was not good because I don't think any of them got along, like really. So this is Joseph Broz Tito, and he was Prime Minister of Yugoslavia from 1943 to 1963 and President from 1953 to 1980. He eventually died sometime in the 80s, which led to the breakup of Yugoslavia, which was not pretty at all. It was very violent, and yeah, that was bad. Kosovo. Kosovo contained 82% Serbs and 10% Albanians. So with Serbs being the majority of the population, they launched a ethnic cleansing of Albanians. In 1999, more than 800,000 ethnic Albanians had been forced to camps in Albania. NATO launched an air attack because of this, and this made Serbia withdraw all soldiers and police from Kosovo. Kosovo then declared independence from Serbia in 2008. Yay! Bosnia and Herzegovina. So, Bosnia and Herzegovina consisted of 44% Bosniaks, 31% Serbs, and 17% Croats. Serbs and Croats launched an ethnic cleansing on Bosnian Muslims, not Bosniaks, because not all of them were Bosnian Muslims, just some of them. Some of them were Bosnian Muslims. So this happened because Serbs and Croats wanted to merge with Serbia and Croatia, and the ethnic cleansing of Bosnian Muslims made sure that it was only Bosnian Serbs that remained, so that made them able to merge with Serbia and Croatia. So here's some vocabulary. Balkanized, a small geographic area that could not successfully be organized into stable countries because it was inhabited by many ethnicities with complex, long-standing antagonisms toward each other, and balkanization is the process by which a state breaks down through conflicts among its ethnicities. Africa. So because Africa is kind of a mess, no offense to Africa, but it's kind of a mess, there's a lot of examples of ethnic cleansing and genocide. So, for the sake of time, I will be just skimming over it. So, Darfur, due to the resentment of discriminatory and neglectful government, Darfur's black African ethnicities launched a rebellion in 2003. The government easily fought back, though, leading to an estimated 300,000 victims of genocide and about 3 million victims of ethnic cleansing. South Sudan, a war between the South and North ethnicities from 1983 until 2005 resulted in the death of 2 million Sudanese and 700,000 ethnically cleansed. Abyei, with the independence of South Sudan in 2011, conflict began near the new international border. The status of Abyei considers people in Abyei citizens of both South Sudan and Sudan, and it's basically going to stay that way until a vote is made. However, the vote has been postponed, so we will be waiting on that. Until then, a peacekeeping force from Ethiopia is keeping both countries from gaining control of Abyei. So, like Abyei, South Kordofan and Blue Nile are also to be announced on which country they belong to, and they also contain a large number of ethnicities. Waiting on that. Until then, a peacekeeping force from Ethiopia is keeping both countries from gaining control of Abyei. So, like Abyei, South Kordofan and Blue Nile are also to be announced on which country they belong to, and they also contain a large number of ethnicities. The Eastern Front. Ethnicities in the east have fought against Sudanese government and forces with support from Eritrea. The issue has been disbursement of profits from oil. Rwanda and Burundi have conflicts between two ethnicities, the Hutus and the Tutsis. The ethnicities are similar to each other but still engage in large-scale ethnic cleansing and genocide. Despite Hutus being the larger part of the population, Tutsis remain in power, and then when Rwanda gained independence, Hutus launched an ethnic cleansing and genocide on the Tutsis. Congo. So, Congo is Africa's most populous and multi ethnic countries. It is home to more than 200 distinct ethnicities. However, more than 5 million have died through Congo's many civil wars. Tutsis eventually took over and overthrew Congo's president, Joseph Mobutu, replacing him with Laurent Kabila. Kabila relied on Tutsis and permitted them to kill Hutus responsible for atrocities against Tutsis, like the previous example I had mentioned. The Eastern Front. Ethnicities in the east have fought against Sudanese government and forces with support from Eritrea. Soon Kabila split from Tutsis, and the Tutsis relied on rebels. And then Kabila was assassinated in 2001 but was replaced by his son. So, unfortunately, the conflicts in Congo still remain. Okay, guys, that's it. I don't really know. I didn't know what to put here, but thank you. Bye.